I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
We have such sights to show you.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
I guess I was probably returning videotapes.
I am big. It's the picture that got small.
Who cares?
Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome to another episode of the Movie Roulette Tuesday podcast. I am Rachel.
I'm Carl.
I'm Matt.
And this week it's my pick, and I have chosen, I think I mentioned this last week, I've chosen the movie 13 Lives, which came out last year, 2022. It is an action-adventure biography drama thriller based on a true story, directed by Ron Howard, starring Viggo Mortensen and Colin Farrell. The description says it is a rescue mission. A rescue mission is assembled in Thailand, where a group of young boys and their soccer coach are trapped in a system of underground caves that are flooding. This really happened in real life. I vaguely remember it happening. I don't remember what year it happened in. Do you guys?
It's in somewhat recent time, like a few years ago.
Right?
I do remember it.
Every morning on the news, they'd be like, yep, they're still down there.
Yeah. So, I don't know that much about the story, but I know it involves a lot of scuba diving, cave diving.
Yeah, that's some scary shit.
Yeah, that terrifies me. So, scuba diving kind of freaks me out. Matt is a seasoned scuba diver, so he's our resident expert today.
Some paprika.
What?
Seasoned with paprika.
Oh, I get it. That's terrible.
No, I've been a diver for, 20 years now.
Yeah.
And, I got certified with a few friends, and we kind of had our group. We would go diving sometimes twice or more a week before the kids were born, before Michael was born. And, I used to love it. I mean, I don't have the opportunity to as much anymore, but...
You've done, like, wrecks and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I loved wreck diving. You know, it's like going to your own private museum underwater. You know, you need... There's nothing quite like it. It's hard for me to describe because without, going there yourself, it's such an experience, especially around here where, things... It reminds me a lot of the opening of the movie Das Boot, where all of a sudden the ship kind of materializes out of the gloom.
I don't like it. I know. It's
when you're
scary.
descending a line down onto a wreck, that's what it's like. And you're making sure everything's squared away, and typically driving in a dry suit, so you're making sure you're not getting shrink wrapped in your dry suit as you go down, and clearing your ears and looking at your gauges and trying to get down as fast as possible, and the thing just emerges.
This giant behemoth.
And sometimes it is. It depends on what it is.
Too scary.
But yeah, it's an amazing experience. Going inside of wrecks is dangerous, and you're in an overhead environment, but it's not quite the same as
a cave.
What this movie's going to portray. Diving inside of a cave is a whole other animal.
You got to be worried about your tanks and catching.
Well, you do inside of a wreck.
I know, but
as well, but
getting lost.
Getting lost
inside of a wreck, too. But yeah, especially inside of a cave, and you're usually advancing much farther into a cave than you would in any sort of wreck.
Of course, yeah.
The other problem is that inside of a cave, most times inside of a shipwreck, you'll have current come through and watch it, because if you disturb anything inside of a ship, particulate matter is going to cause you to lose all visibility. Sometimes you'll be lucky enough to have current kind of rip through and clear that out, but sometimes you're not going to be able to inside of a room, which is why whenever you're going inside of a wreck, we run lines, like a reel. So we'll tie to an anchor point outside of the entry point, and we will run a line. They do the same thing in caves. in established cave systems that people dive.
It's like breadcrumbs.
they're
It's like
already-
canceling
well,
bread.
They actually are. And
Yeah.
they'll put these things they're called cookies on the line to show what direction you're going in. So there'll be
my God.
arrows and
Yeah.
stop, points. But inside of a cave, there's often never inside of a flooded cave system. You don't get that particular matter that you disturb might be obscuring visibility for like a week.
Well, one of the divers, the real life divers, he praised this film's accuracy, but saying that the one cinematic change was that the cave water was muddy and they had no visibility.
Yeah.
And you can't film that. But I can't even, that must be just so terrifyingly disorienting. You
Yeah.
can't really see. You're in this, I'm assuming, narrow channel. Some caves are wide and open, but then you have to, navigate
Connecting
these
You'll
have a
narrow
constriction
passages.
where sometimes you
Freaks
have to-
me right out.
You'll have to take your tanks off and push them through
Yep.
in front of you.
Yep. Nope. I don't want to do that.
And it's not like a small space. Like I've trained for that, where you're underwater and you completely remove your gear, and sometimes you swap it with somebody else, or you put it all back on. It's another thing entirely to have to take that out and then shove yourself through like a crack in some rocks
Yeah.
Probably dragging your tank behind you.
and get through. No, pushing in front of you.
Pushing.
Yeah. Plus, you have hard and soft overhead limits when you're diving in general, right? You might stay down too long and have to, do decompression stops on the way up.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a soft limit. If anything ever happened, you could, in theory, still hit the surface, get taken care of in some way, and you'll probably survive depending on the scenario. Inside of a wreck, there's literally a hard surface above you. You can't get out.
Right.
But you need to get to an exit and get out. In a cave, you might be like 2 miles in.
How are you going to get out? Yeah.
You can't.
No.
You can't just surface. You got to find your way out.
No.
That's right. So you have to plan your dives. Like, you have to have a turn pressure, meaning your tanks. If you're diving scuba, open circuit scuba, there's only a certain amount of air in your tanks. You have to have a reserve so that you're planning for some padding in case of an emergency, or maybe your breathing rate increases, so you're depleting that supply. So it's called the rule of thirds, but without getting technical, you can only get so far in before you can say, okay, I have to turn around or else
yeah.
I'm going to die.
Right.
I don't have enough to get back.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's very technical.
And there are signs on some of these, like Wakulla Springs or Ginny's. I can't remember the names. It's a cave system in Florida. It's huge and very popular. There are signs at the cave entrances where it has the Grim Reaper on it, and it says, "You will die if you are not,
prepared,
properly certified and prepared.
Yeah.
Do not enter an overhead environment." And that's good advice. Even if you're swimming, if you find a cool like cave or what else do they call it?
I don't know.
Like a cavern as opposed to a
yeah.
cave. Don't go in it.
Right.
Don't go in it unless you know what you're doing. Conditions change. You can get
As
swept away
evidenced by
and
this
drown, and that's what this
Thai
movie. Yes.
soccer team, who clearly went into this cave not realizing it was going to start flooding. So this is like,
Yeah.
don't
do this.
Don't do this.
So are there different levels of certification? Like, do you have to be certified for caves specifically?
Yeah,
Or
there are different levels of cave as well.
What is so? If cave diving is not cave diving, cave exploration is spelunking.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what? What is cave diving?
It's
like
cave diving.
Scuba diving.
That's what it's cave
It's not
diving.
like scuba lunking.
No.
That would be kind of cool. I don't know.
that's ridiculous, Rachel.
I know.
Usually, if you're like a research diver, or maybe you are filming, underwater footage
Documentary.
inside of a cave, often you're going to be not only cave certified, but you have to be trained on a rebreather unit. So with open circuit scuba, that's the traditional. You got it. You see someone, they have a tank on their back, they have something in their mouth. It's a regulator that's allowing them to breathe from the tank, and you breathe through you're inhaling air or whatever gas is in your tank and exhaling it. But as we know, your body's only using a certain percentage of oxygen that's inside of all that gas that you're taking in, right? And you're exhaling primarily carbon dioxide. What a rebreather will do is there are closed, semi-closed, whatever, but I'm just going to talk about closed circuit rebreathers where it's a closed loop. So you have much smaller tanks. You typically have 100% or roughly there of oxygen on one side, and you have a diluent on the other. It can be a number of things, but let's just say it's air. And you have monitors throughout the loop that you're breathing, and they monitor the partial pressure of oxygen inside of the loop. And there's a canister that's called the scrubber, and the scrubber is filled with a chemical, sonfalime. And what that's able to do is it's able to scrub carbon dioxide out of the air.
And then you can recirculate. It'll recirculate.
It
which
recycles
is cool.
your air. So it's way more efficient than
That'd be good
scuba-
for space.
Well,
Do astronauts use that?
yes, that's exactly how.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
That's where it came from, and the other main benefit of that is that there's no exhalation, so there's no bubbles. So when you're exhaling, especially if you're inside of a cave and there's like a ceiling type structure, and
Yeah, you don't
there's-
want to disturb it.
That's right, and bubbles like that happens all the time in wrecks.
Yeah,
Where
you're
it'll
messing
disturb
with
like
things.
rust or other.
You go into stealth mode.
You're in complete stealth
Breather.
mode, and it's beneficial if you're filming like wildlife or things like that because you're like them. You're not doing anything super
Right.
weird.
Also, speaking of wildlife, if anyone hears purring, it's the cat. He
It's
just
not my stomach.
decided.
Yeah.
I know. He decided to come join us, and he's purring loudly and aggressively.
Yeah.
So, there he is. Say hi, Zero.
So yeah, I mean that's a little sample. I'm
Dive into
very
it.
interested to see how. I mean, I'm
Well,
glad
the
to hear.
actors, Colin Farrell and Viggo Mortensen, do their own diving in this. They learned how to scuba, or they knew and got recertified. They trained in these big, like, tubes that they would turn into the cave passages, and they would have to train to do it.
I'm sure that's where they filmed as well. Like they're not
Yeah.
going to put these people inside of a real cave system.
Well, it's,
No.
I mean, this is Ron Howard, so
Yeah.
he's got a history, even with the Apollo 13.
Apollo 13, yeah.
Where he, they were
Everest.
in that plane that drops
Yeah.
quick enough that makes them weightless,
Yeah,
and
it's
then he
parabolic.
decided, why don't we just film the whole movie like on this plane?
Great, let's
and
all
be
vomit.
actually
Yeah.
weightless. So, from an accuracy standpoint, I know it's important to him.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the people that were involved in this said this movie's pretty accurate. So, I'm excited.
It's not going to be like that. Oh my God, what was that other movie? Where
Another movie.
it was like a horror movie, I think, where everyone was on rebreathers and they're all in this cave. It might have been like The Cave or something.
No, I don't know.
I don't know. It was
We
terrible.
didn't see it was bad.
It was horrible.
It's funny because my wife is a classical musician, and so whenever we see a movie or a television show where somebody's playing a violin or something,
Yeah.
immediately she'll be like, they're not really playing, or they're not even trying to make it seem like they're really playing. So I almost think it's similar with scuba. Like once you're certified and you're experienced in it, like does that distract you?
No, well, I agree with that. I'm a software engineer, so every time a movie tries to make anything about a computer exciting,
This is a
I know
Unix
that
system.
I know
bullshit.
this.
You know?
Yeah, I'm hacking into the mainframe.
And it's fun. They actually made a user interface based off of what she was doing in Jurassic Park. It was for Silicon Graphics machines,
cool.
and I had a few SGI machines over the years, and I actually installed that GUI over it. It's kind of cool. It's like totally clunky and not.
Did they
functional.
have Dennis being like,
They did not.
Didn't
have that,
say the
no.
magic word.
But when, in terms of like diving, the actual diving portion is typically secondary to whatever the movie or show is trying to portray, right? Unless it's specifically
Unless
about
it's
that.
this, yeah.
Yeah. The thing that bothers me the most is when people have shit dangling everywhere. It's like your
You're
goal
supposed
as
to
a
do
diver
that.
is to be as streamlined as possible, and also to not disturb the environment around you, and to not get yourself entangled in just crap. There's a lot of junk under the water: nets, monofilament line,
Seaweed.
cables. Yeah,
It'll
just-
get you.
But you do
Sargassum.
Kraken.
or
kraken.
just a rock, like you get like a pressure
Yep.
gauge that's you left dangling for whatever
Sloppy.
reason.
Can't
It
be
gets
sloppy.
Slotted in a rock, and now you're stuck.
Yeah.
Like I've been one of the very first times, actually the very first time I dove, there's a German submarine, the U-853, and it was one of the last ships, period, I think, sunk in World War II. It's off the coast of Block Island. It sits at about, I think, 120 feet, 6 miles off the coast of Block Island. And I've dove on that wreck many times now, but the very first time I dove on that wreck, you know, you tie your boat in to a line. The wreck is marked with a buoy on the surface, so you can tie in there, and all you have to do is get in the water and go down the line, and you're right on the wreck, and the line is tied into the conning tower of the submarine. So the sand is at 120 feet, but like the wreck starts at around 70 feet, I think. And the attack periscope is still in place, and you can see it. It's like stainless steel, it looks like. And, you know, you're following these lines down. And the lines, like, the Coast Guard doesn't maintain these lines. Divers do. And, you know, if it goes away, then, you know, someone needs to run a new line. And that means time, effort, and money voluntarily. So these lines stay the way they are for a very long time, and they collect junk. People fish, they're trawlers out there doing stuff. So anyway, I descend the line, I finally get on the wreck, and you're trying to, it's called task loading. There's a lot to worry about. It's like, all right, what are my tanks like? Am I checking myself out? Am I getting a nitrogen narcosis? So you're running little, you know, routines through your head. What's my name? What's my phone number? What's my social security number?
Sounds
backwards.
great. Doesn't it sound great?
Well, no, but like, you're challenging yourself,
terrifying.
and you don't have to do these things.
I know.
but it's so that there's safety. So anyway, I get down there, and there's a giant ball of monofilament fishing line that's on the bottom where the line is tied in to the wreck. And the very first thing that happened, and I have stuff with me. I have, you know, a main light and a backup light, and, you know, cutting shears, like EMT shears, and a knife. And what gets caught in the monofilament line but my EMT shears, which are in like a sheath around my, you know, BCD. I use a
Around your
backplate and
waist,
wings instead of a BCD, but yeah, so it's basically like having a knife on your belt, and then you get caught in a rope, you know, when you're walking around, and I cannot get it undone.
I've never heard this story.
And luckily,
This is great.
you know, there were other people there, and I ended up having to break the shears in half to get unstuck. But all the time, it's like, okay, I have a limited amount of time to be down here, not just based on the air in my tanks, but my exposure, you know, at this depth. I'm gonna incur more penalties. It's going to increase my, you know, decompression stop times and all that. And you want to see the wreck. It's like, you just got here. I want to check everything out. So, anyway, I forgot.
So when people have dangly things, that takes you out of
dangly
it
things,
a little bit.
Don't do that.
The lesson here is diving is risky, and it's risky.
But it's
Plus-
extremely enjoyable.
You're kind of in the food chain again
Yeah.
when you go down there, right?
Oh, you sure are.
There's
Yeah.
stuff that can eat you down
You're not
there.
at the top.
You have no peripheral vision.
You don't. Well,
You
that's
don't.
not true. You have
no,
peripheral
you do
vision.
not.
Not as
no,
good as you do on
no,
land.
no.
That's like one of the time I was trying to convince someone I used to work with to go diving because they've always expressed an interest, and he's like, "No, I can't see behind me when I'm in the water." I'm like, "You can't see behind you
Right
now." Like that's not a water thing.
That's true.
That's just a
It's
fact
not.
of life
You know
thing.
what? Scuba diving is not for everyone, and like
It's
there's
not.
different levels of diving. I think there's like, you know, fun Caribbean diving, and then there's like gnarly North Atlantic muddy water deep wreck diving. And it's variations in between, and there's all different. You know, you can have an open circuit, or you can have a rebreather, or you can do nitrox or whatever things I'm shouting about. But
Yeah.
It's just not for me.
There's a variety.
I'm not
I
doing
think
it.
that you could totally handle being a vacation diver. Like when we travel, like when we go to Bermuda, I dove there. You could have
Yeah.
totally. It's not deep. You don't have to go deep to see interesting things.
I just
You
don't
dove
want to.
between two plate tectonics.
I did. I dove in Iceland.
Yeah, you touched two different tectonic
And that's the other thing.
plates,
Like
which is cool.
Diving in cold water
Ugh.
will typically necessitate a dry suit, which is, more
Insulated.
experience that you need to have, because it's a thing. Like a wetsuit, you just put it on and then you're done. A dry suit is hooked up into your air supply or an argon tank if you want to have a denser gas to
lot.
insulate you further. Yeah, it is a lot.
lot.
Like every
Yeah.
level, every time you're trying to go deeper, farther, colder. That adds to what I called task loading earlier.
I'm
But
going to stay on the beach.
I was always interested in it because ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. I was fascinated with space and the space program. I loved it. I still do. And going underwater is the closest a layperson can be to an astronaut.
That's true. That is
And
true.
it's, the exploration portion of it. You're in a world that is alien to you, to your everyday life.
You're not supposed to survive in that world.
That's right.
That's what's weird.
And that's incredible to me.
Yeah, sure.
That's why. That's one of the reasons why.
I'm
I
glad
like
you
to-
see it that
I like
way.
to
It's
do it.
that's terrifying to me. I can't this movie's gonna freak me out. I know it because scuba diving kind of freaks me out, and being in a cave or in a claustrophobic setting completely freaks me out.
Yeah.
That is I am claustrophobic. I don't like it.
Oh, I
so,
wonder.
well,
Have you ever seen The Descent?
I don't know. Maybe sounds familiar. I don't know. But anyway,
This has been a fabulous.
this is a technically
Educational.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm sorry I babbled on so
No,
much.
I
do that
wanted you to
for
talk
things that I'm
about scuba
interested in.
diving. You are knowledgeable about that.
Where are we watching this right
We
now?
are going to watch this on Amazon Prime for free. This premiered.
Included.
Yeah, Amazon original. They
It's an
put this
Amazon
out.
original, yeah. So it was kind of a sleeper, but I've read a lot of good things about it. So I'm really looking forward to it. I like these actors. I like Ron Howard. It's a compelling story. And, yeah. What did we have for dinner, Carl?
What didn't we have for dinner?
A lot of things.
A lot of things. Yeah, we so we had some sliders,
Yeah. Cheeseburger sliders.
cheeseburger sliders,
Made them for you.
and it was delicious because they weren't like compact patties. You did a good job of commingling the meat and the cheese,
Yes.
so we're just like
Kind of a
crumbly
little
and
loose,
gooey
yep.
and
Yes.
loosely packed.
Yep.
Delicious. The
Exactly.
buns seemed a little toasted.
Yep. We had terrible French fries. They were
Yeah,
terrible.
I mean, if I rated this meal just on the fries, 1 star would not recommend.
No. They were in a bag. I dumped the bag out. I accidentally got shoestring fries, which you're not supposed to, those aren't good. But they were like each an inch long. Like, what are these? The ends of the shoestring fries? They weren't good, but I didn't
Their
know.
potatoes, they were crispy.
They
They
were.
were fine.
We shoved them in our mouths. And salad. You ate salad.
I did have salad.
That's very good.
I'm not
We both ate
anti-salad. I'm
salad.
just fussy about my greens.
I always eat
understand.
salad.
You do, I know. So, all right, I think we're gonna go dive into this movie, and we'll see you on the other side.
Okay.
And we're back. We have watched the movie 13 Lives. It seems like it's pretty true to the actual events, even though I didn't read about the actual events before watching this because I wanted to be surprised. And I was. This was quite the movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I loved it. Carl?
I was not expecting the mermaids.
Oh, stop it. That would be extra cool. Cave mermaids.
No, it was good.
It was great. It was just... It was like a straight up true story. It was interesting enough without... I don't think there were embellishments.
And even if there were, they must have been minor, just to kind of fill spaces in. Like,
Seemingly low key.
yeah.
So basically, the gist of the story, spoilers ahead, obviously, is that 12 kids and their soccer coach play a game. Then they're going to go to somebody's birthday party. But before that, they're like, let's go check out the caves. I guess it's some shrine in a mountain. And many people go there. The cave looks like it's been visited a lot. There are railings and whatever. And it's pre-monsoon season, which I guess happens in July in Thailand. And that's when you don't go in the caves because they flood. But it's not monsoon season yet, so they're like, yeah, all right, let's go. They get into the cave, and all of a sudden, the sky opens up, and monsoon season starts early. And
It rains for like 3 days straight.
it pours rain.
Oh, no, 9
and
days.
They can't get out.
Yeah.
And people find out that these kids, they don't come home. They figure out they're in the caves, and rescuers start to trickle in. You know, first it's local, and then it's, you know, country government,
International.
and then it becomes an international thing. And, you know, these boys have been in a cave for almost 2 weeks before anyone even makes contact with them. But these two British cave divers, one's a retired firefighter, and the other one's an IT guy.
IT consultant, yeah.
IT consultant. They both have been doing cave diving and cave rescue forever. They see this on the news. They're like, let's go try to help. So they connect with the authorities there. They come over, and basically they're the only ones that know how to get to these kids and rescue these kids.
Yeah. And the local government seemed reluctant to have them participate because it seemed like they didn't want, you know, a non-native person to.
Well, yeah, and they had SEAL divers, but they were only trained, they kept saying they were only trained in open water. They're not trained for cave diving. So it was really cool. I learned a lot about cave diving, cave scuba diving. And the wildest part is that, and I did not know this, in order to get the kids out, they had to anesthetize them.
Yeah, because it was like a 3 kilometer dive, and so from the entrance to where the kids were was 3 kilometers, you know, into the cave. However, it was still like a 6-hour dive.
Yeah,
to get from the
just
entrance.
to get there. Never mind to get back. It's like 7.5 when you're towing a lifeless, you know, dead weight body.
So they had to bring in wetsuits and positive pressure masks for these kids.
They had to zip tie their hands behind their backs.
Bundle them all up
It
and
was
then
nuts.
inject them with ketamine to keep them
Every 30 minutes.
Every 30 minutes.
And the two British divers called in some other rescue divers that they knew in their circle, and one of them was the anesthesiologist.
Yeah.
And they proposed this idea to this guy, and he was like, this is not going to work. I'm going to kill them. And they all made it out.
Yeah.
All the kids and the coach.
And the other Navy SEALs.
They got trapped in there
Thai
for a
Navy
little while.
SEALs that got trapped. They made
it
it
was-
back out. And unfortunately, 2 of them died afterwards, though, from a blood infection.
No, one died from a blood infection. and one died in the cave. So 2 people died. But it was really cool to see, like, not just the divers, but everyone in the community, like other experts, just other community members. Everybody wanted to help and tried to help in their own way. It was very
Well, that and like the
uplifting.
farmers willing to lose their crops, because there's this whole other, not subplot, but other thing going on where they need to divert the rainwater away from these holes. The water
And the mountains.
isn't seeping in through the ground into the caves. It's coming in directly from these sinkholes in the mountain.
Yeah.
Right,
So
the
it's-
cave
so
is in the mountain.
It's raining. The water keeps seeping in through these sinkholes, so they're trying to divert all this water. And they said, how many gallons did they pump? Like some crazy
56 million gallons or
Ridiculous
something.
million gallons. Yeah. But it flooded these farmers' fields,
And
and
they
their
lost their
crops
crop.
were completely ruined. I guess they got compensated.
They
for
said that
it.
they were offered compensation by the government. I assume they took it.
I knew this happened, but I didn't follow it. I didn't know the extent of it.
Yeah,
It's
it happened
crazy.
in 2018.
Yes.
Well, it was. I remember it was on the news like every morning they talked about it.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, and I'm glad I watched this because I remember the time when they said that their coach was in there with them. I'm picturing like, you know, a grown adult man.
Yeah.
That's like,
Sure.
why would he have brought these kids in this cave? But the coach didn't seem like he was much older than the oldest kid. I mean,
Right.
he looked like he was
Yeah, young adult.
A young adult,
Younger
and-
adult.
And he was the last one to leave, and he kept them calm the whole time they were in the cave. And even there was a whole section where he even said, like, I was expecting people to blame me for this, not necessarily thank me for.
Should have said I was expecting Carl to blame me.
Carl's
and he
probably
did.
yelling at his television right now. Why did that coach bring them in there?
But it kind of explains it too. It's like it wasn't rainy season yet, and people go in that.
And it's a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just some random cave in the
It's
side
like,
of the
"Hey,
mountain.
kids, let's go explore this danger cave.
Through the whole time, I mean, he kept them safe and occupied.
Meditating.
Yeah.
He taught them how to meditate and
Yes, remain calm.
Yeah.
Not be fearful. That's Can you imagine being in a cave, pitch black? You have like little flashlights. You don't know what time of day it is. You don't know anything. That's nuts.
yeah,
I can't even for days.
weeks.
I mean, I
Turn
could,
into weeks. Yeah.
I could barely handle a shift at Discovery Zone back in the day, let alone being stuck in a cave with these kids for like 2 weeks.
Oh my god! How did they not contaminate their own drinking water?
Well, it looks like they were drinking it as it was dripping down.
All right.
That seemed to be
And then they were just going in the lake part.
I mean, they didn't address that. In the,
I
in the
kinda wanted
movie.
that.
Oh
I
man,
like
if those
those.
scuba divers had to swim through some floaters, that
Of
wouldn't
course
have been
they
fun.
did. Of course they did. This
I was amazed. I was impressed by how accurate everything was.
All the diving
right down
stuff.
to every little bit of gear, everything that they talked about, and it was just enough to make it interesting, but not they didn't like focus on
No.
all the technical aspects of it. But it was very impressive.
It was accurate.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
it really was.
But like this movie immediately made me think of you watch these horrible things that happen to people on the news. Do you guys remember baby Jessica
Yeah,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course I do.
who
Stuck
got
in the
stuck
well?
in the well? That I was little when that happened, and that affected me a lot. I would think about it and be like, "Oh my god, this little girl is stuck in this tube with wasn't like one of her legs
Yes.
like wedged up?"
Uh-huh.
That is the worst.
Yeah, that's the thing. They say she's stuck in a well, and you hear the
No.
word well.
I think of the Ring.
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
no. It wasn't like a wishing well. It was like a tube.
This is like the well they drill in your yard if you can't get hooked up to
she
city
fell in a
water.
well. But they rescued her, but that was traumatizing
And how
to
long
me.
was she stuck in there? I don't remember.
3 days, I think. I don't know. But I just remember that. That was horrible. That was traumatic for me, and I wasn't stuck in the well.
What was it? What I didn't know about this movie, and you told me actually before we watched it, is that when they were trying to figure out who would go out first. So if they were rescued and they couldn't all be rescued at once, they were trying to figure out who would be, the first to go out.
Yeah.
And they organized themselves by how far away they lived from the cave, because they all rode their bikes to the cave.
Right.
And they thought that they were going to have to ride their bikes home.
They didn't know
after
that
they
there was
got out of
so
the
much
cave. They had
media and public attention.
Zero idea.
Yeah, so they decided that the kids who lived furthest away
Yeah.
would go first because they could tell everyone on the way.
Right.
It's like, no, guys, you don't have to do that.
Well, and they also made a point of saying that they would not tell the parents, like, as they brought the kids out, they wouldn't tell the parents, like, which kid it was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I don't know whether they were afraid, because they were very hush-hush about the sedation aspect of
Which
it.
is totally understandable.
And
This is
so I don't know if they did that so that it wouldn't spread as far as how they were getting the kids out,
Well,
or
probably a bit of that, but I would guess that it's also because they didn't want to say, well, where's my son? How come
Right.
you're not
Right.
rescuing him first?
So they're all
let's
equal
get
footing.
everybody.
Exactly. It's like, look, we're going to try to rescue everyone equally. We will tell everyone everything that happened after
At the
we're
end.
done with the
But as a
effort.
parent, yeah, I'd be beside
And
myself.
what did they... Right at the end of the movie, they were pulling 4 kids out at a time. That's the most that they could handle. And then they did 5.
Yeah.
Right? And then on that last day, they had to do a push and just to get everyone else out. And it's good that they did, because at the end of it, what did they say? It rained for like another 8 months or
Yeah.
something crazy
Yeah.
like that.
And the whole cave was submerged. The whole
yeah,
thing.
the whole cave was submerged for 8 months.
Yeah.
right.
After that. That's
So
insane.
they would have been dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, bringing in equipment from all over. They had these like PVC pipes that I think it was PVC that they were putting together to try to divert all the water from these sinkholes and stuff, and they run out and they can't get any more, and they just start cutting bamboo down.
Well, yeah, and then splitting it.
Making pipes.
That makes a conduit.
Makeshift pipes. It was impressive.
It's really cool. It was a really good movie.
Yeah.
And I don't think it overstayed its welcome. It's long. It was 2.5 hours, but
It goes by quick.
I
think so anyway.
very interested. And they cut to the chase. There's no bullshit in this movie. There's no,
No.
character development, or this is, literally all about this rescue and how crazy it was. Because it was crazy.
Yeah. It was close to a documentary. It kind of reminded me, it made me think of movies like Towering Inferno, where...
Yeah. You learn the technical aspect of whatever
Yeah.
the movie's about. Sure.
But it's more of instead of a documentary mixed with some dramatic narrative like Towering Inferno, this is a
straight up.
dramatized documentary.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all meat, no filler,
It's interesting that they really focus on the rescue aspect and not as much focus on the kids, because they show the kids go in the cave and then they immediately start going in on the rescue aspect of it. And,
I think
and you see the kids when they find them, but
Yeah.
we don't spend a whole lot of time with the kids and how they dealt with being in the cave. It was definitely focused more on the rescuers.
That's a different movie, which should be made and told, right? It's like, how did these kids cope with basically being in the dark and alone and hungry for 13 days?
But
This was you're right. This
And the
was
rescue's
rescue
probably a
movie.
more interesting story as far
Well,
as
I think-
I would
problem
think so.
solving and
Sure.
Yeah.
ingenuity and,
Yeah.
and how the communities all came together.
Yeah.
And
It's more movie material.
Wow.
Plus, it puts the audience in the same position as everyone else was at the time of the incident, right? You
Yeah.
don't know what their status is. Did they all drown already? Did they all suffocate
Yeah.
already? Who knows?
I think it's amazing that they all lived.
maybe we get a sequel that's just pitch black with 13 voices
Thai
just talking
kids
for an
in
hour.
Thai- yeah, be like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. But yeah, what a crazy.
I really liked it.
Crazy
I really
situation.
enjoyed it. I would recommend this movie to everybody. My mom and everybody else. It's a good movie.
Same. I don't know if it's going to grab everyone the same. I can see some people getting bored with it, maybe.
What?
But
How could you get bored with this?
because it's
it's a human interest.
I know
story.
that. I was grabbed by it. I was interested by it for a variety of reasons. I think there's a lot for people to be interested in, but I can imagine some people being like, "Oh my god, yeah, give me the 45-minute Netflix special
Whatever,
version
screw that.
of the story." I agree with you. I'm just saying.
I don't
there's
wanna hear that.
Potential.
Colin Farrell and Viggo Mortensen acted well too. They didn't steal the show or over dramatize things. They just blended right in. It was really good. They were just really good. Everything was good.
Well, and Joel Edgerton's in it as well. He plays the anesthesiologist.
I didn't know. Yes. What else is he in?
He was in... He's done some Star Wars things. He plays Uncle Owen in the prequels.
Owen.
He was in Black Mass,
No.
which we've watched.
We have? We've
Yeah,
seen that?
was the Whitey Bulger.
Oh, with Johnny,
Johnny
Depp.
Depp.
I don't remember
Did
that.
we watch that or?
I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
I don't think so, Carl.
But anyway, it doesn't really matter. All of these top name actors that are in this movie,
Yeah.
they didn't need to be in this movie. It was fine that they were.
No.
But they just executed their roles
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, there's Viggo Mortensen, whatever.
Aragorn.
Well, and the fact that they did all their own diving.
That's
I mean,
wild
after
to me.
watching the movie and knowing that,
Yeah.
kudos to them.
Yeah.
That's...
And didn't Colin Farrell, he was... what was the story about him running a marathon after the...
I guess the guy who he plays, the diver that he portrays in this film, was a runner.
Mm-hmm.
He would do distance running. And so, of course, Colin Farrell would, talk to him through Skype and learned about him and, tried to do the things he did. And so he ended up taking up distance running. And after this movie, he ran, the Brisbane Marathon or something. It was kind of cool, though,
Yeah.
Just really get into your roles, your method acting.
Yeah, I mean, if I was an actor, that would be great to be able to do this. You know, in a controlled environment, you learn how to. It's like I'm going to do my own.
You know what? Colin Farrell did not think it was great. He said it freaked him out, and he probably would never do it again. Diving.
But he did it.
He did do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's dedication to your craft.
It sure is.
Yep.
Kudos to him because no way. Some of those tight. Oh, they get like wedged.
Every time Rachel would just go,
I'm
"Ugh."
like, oh no, God.
Every time a tank would clank on something.
Yeah, like. No.
When they filmed this, they obviously didn't film it in a real cave.
Filmed it in a cave.
But they created these tunnel subsystems inside of a large pool
Tube.
tank, and they would film each part in there. So you're still diving in a
in an enclosed, cramped space.
Yeah,
you can't escape from. Like you got to go through it.
And the footage that came out of those,
It's really good.
it's great.
Yeah,
it really is good.
Sometimes you see underwater footage and you're like, what's going on? I don't know what's happening. But this was pretty clear. Like, it conveyed what was, even when things were confusing.
And there's some real moments, like, I was talking about things dangling.
That's right.
Earlier, and someone...
That's how somebody died.
Matt say, see, I told you.
Because I did.
It's like, there it is.
It's true.
It's dangling.
All it takes is something silly when this, that guy lost the line.
Oh, my God,
As he was exiting, and he picked up some other cable.
Yep.
And managed to make it, luckily, to another chamber that was part of their exit strategy, but...
Yeah, that affected him.
Yeah.
Thought he was lost. But...
Yeah. So, I mean, is there a rating
Carl?
that you guys are going to give?
I'd give it 4 streeps.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5 experienced divers. It was really good.
I really enjoyed it quite a bit.
I had high hopes, too.
To anybody.
Well, Ron Howard, he usually doesn't put out crap.
No, and that's why I had high hopes.
Yeah.
So, I really liked it. I recommend it to everyone. It's definitely... And it's exciting. It's uplifting.
It's interesting.
It's interesting. It has it all.
Yeah, and it's true. It's a true story with a happy ending.
Yeah, it for real happened. It wasn't like The Vanishing true story. This was a really true story.
Well, right. Like, this was something that actually happened, something that was interesting that happened. Like you said, human interest story.
Right.
The Vanishing was... They took some...
They made that up.
Content and...
Creative liberties.
They did.
They made it up.
Very...
Come on. It was made up.
Very creative liberties. I don't know.
Well, I think the moral of the story is if you plan on visiting Thailand, specifically caves, do some research. Or just don't.
Just don't do it.
Don't go during the rainy season.
Or ever.
Which is 8 months out of the year, apparently.
Ugh, God. Right? I bet everything smells like mildew during the rainy season. It's just hot and damp.
A lot of sump pumps.
I doubt it. I bet it just smells like wet and earth.
Well, outside, but I bet.
Yeah. Oh, inside? Sure. Yeah.
Mildew.
Sorry to all our Thai listeners.
I don't know.
Maybe they could let us know.
I would still like to go there. I think
It
It
looks
looks
beautiful.
gorgeous.
Beautiful
All
country to
those
visit.
mountains. Oh my God. What was the mountain called? The Sleeping Princess?
Yes.
I didn't see it. It's okay.
They had another name, but yeah.
It seemed like it's like the oil tank in Boston that you can see
I
something.
I can see the
old
guy.
man.
Yeah. He's got a beard. I know who he is.
Isn't it the artist?
Oh, is it?
Like incorporating his face into... Yeah.
This is an urban legend. We've delved into
No,
urban legends.
I don't think it's an urban legend. I think that's real.
Okay.
But
Well,
anyway.
Carl, it's your pick next week. Any ideas?
is.
Any thoughts? Any?
0 thoughts.
Oh, that's good. It's just an empty, vapid chamber up in there, huh? There's nothing going on.
Whatever I happen to be
No
in the mood for
thoughts?
next week,
Okay.
That's a long time from now to then.
It's 7 whole days.
I could be a different person at that point.
You could. Your beard's looking real nice, by the way.
I need to trim it. I need to trim this.
I don't think you should. I like it.
Yeah?
I'm waiting for you to braid it.
Oh.
I really want that.
Go for the Gimli look?
Yeah, you could do it. You could
Let
pull
it
that
grow.
off. You'd be a really tall dwarf,
Wild
though.
and free. Yes.
Toss
Biggest
me.
dwarf. All right. So, any catchphrases this week?
Well, it's just... Join us next week for another Movie Roulette Tuesday. because movies matter.
All
They're
right.
getting so bad. They're just so bad. Movies matter.
They do.
Okay.
All right. I'm cutting this off
Hey,
here because it's
thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you next time.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right, bye.